Okay, I'd like to call the village board meeting to order for Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. Roll call, please.
President Kardasky.
Here.
Trustee Service.
Here.
Trustee Paul.
Here.
Trustee Zerbal.
Here.
Trustee Atkinson.
Here.
Trustee Krieger is excused, and Trustee Flukie.
Here.
Okay, please stand for the pledge. And please remember the men and women throughout the world in uniform. I have no changes to the agenda. I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, action on the minutes. Consider, discuss, act on the minutes of the December 17th, 2024 Village Board meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 5B, consider, discuss, act on amended open and closed village board minutes of October 22nd, 2024, November 12th, 2024, and November 26th, 2024.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 6, comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda. Must state your name and address. You're limited to 5 minutes. The board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individuals named, and the board is not able to take action at this meeting. Is there any member of the public that would like to comment on anything not on tonight's agenda? One more time, anything not on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on. Number 7, written communications or announcements. I have none.
I have one. A shout out to Public Works. We had a water and ice issue on the Ashwaubenon Trail in front of our property, and they were right out there. They plowed it. They put sand down. Must have had salt in it too, because it's all. I mean, there's sections of it now that are right down to the pavement, and it was like 2 inches thick of ice.
Wow. Okay, so is that Public Works or Park and Rec? Team effort. Okay. Okay, well, okay. Yeah, yeah. Good, thank you. Okay, number 8, action on the consent agenda. Consider, discuss, act on a Class A beer, Class A liquor, cider-only license request for Ridgeway LLC DBA Jaguar Shell. B, consider, discuss, act on appointment of Sue Krieger to Bike and Ped Committee. C, consider, discuss, act on appointment of Anthony Wakowitz to Village Attorney. D, receive, accept Park, Rec, and Forestry Department reports. E, receive, accept January 2025 Public Works Department reports. And that's it. Anybody want anything taken out, or I need a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, number 9, public hearings. 9A, public hearing on ordinance number 01-2-25, amending a planned unit development PUD permitting transient residential use of the Riverway Marina Clubhouse at 457 Marina Lane, parcel VA-132-4-1. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this item? Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this item? Okay, would you come and state your name and address for the record, please?
Don Kettles, 15513 Maiden Lake Road, Mountain, Wisconsin.
Okay,
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time coming. Recently, we purchased the Riverway Marina on January 3rd of 2025, and we're trying to obtain an amendment for the PUD for a short-term rental at this location. It'll only be one unit. As you know, we are in a commercial area. We're excited about this new venture and eager to work collaboratively with the village to continue investing in this beautiful property while contributing vitality of our local community. A little background about our family and business operations. We have managed several commercial properties across various townships in Wisconsin for the last 30 years. Throughout this time, we have always prioritized being our good neighbors and partners with the communities that we serve. We have been involved in a number of initiatives to support our towns, including donations of, we actually have a couple of furniture factories, but like donations of custom handicapped accessible picnic tables for townships. Right now, our factories are in the process of making voting booths for the town of Highland, Brown County for their new town hall that they're building. So we're actively involved with the communities that we have businesses in. We also support the local fire departments. Most of them are volunteer where we have properties and donating for their funds for their equipment and so forth. And we built a strong relationship with the communities we've been a part of and are committed to continuing this positive involvement. Our goal with the Riverway Marina is to create a thriving year-round business that supports local tourism and complements the surrounding businesses. We firmly believe that in addition of short-term rental will contribute to a sustainable business model, enhancing the economic activity in the area. In addition, we reached out to our neighboring businesses, all of whom support this rental. Several have been provided letters, which we have for any of the board to read. We will share those with you. In addition to this, we take steps to ensure that the property is fully accessible. We recently added a driveway that provides handicap access to the trail nearby, which the only other access that's handicap accessible is up by the OC restaurant. That's the next closest one where people can get onto the trail. So either way, that's a good thing for the community. Our vision for the short-term rental is to provide a comfortable and welcoming place for families to stay while visiting the area. With the proximity for local fishing spots, park, shopping, restaurant, and trails, we believe that a rental would be an ideal location for those looking to enjoy all the area has to offer. Furthermore, this investment aligns with our goal of helping foster year-round economy in the village. We are truly excited about the opportunity and are eager to collaborate with the village to make this project a success. I kindly request the village consider approving this amendment to PUD to allow for short-term rental in this property. We are, as I explained in the last meeting that we're at, our family is not in the short-term rental business. We have zero, we have none. We feel that this is a commercial building in a commercial area with support of the commercial businesses around us, that this would be a good use of a commercial building that will always, otherwise than that, just sit vacant. And I understand from talking to some different members of the board, and I really appreciate your concern about these short-term rentals of what I've heard of what it happens to the community and how the board has no control over some areas, whether they are a short-term rental or not. If this property was in a residential area, we'd not even be asking for your, not even approval, but your consideration of it. But being that it's in a commercial area, with support of the commercial businesses around it, we feel that it is at least worth your time to consider approving it. Other than that, I thank you for your time and look forward to working together with the community in the village of Ashwaubenon and to do whatever our businesses can do to help Ashwaubenon Village.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Lori Beyer, and my address is 2308 Apple Creek Court in De Pere. I'm one of the previous owners of Riverway Marina. We bought it out of a foreclosure. I don't know if you know the background on that, back in 2010. And I know the DNR and the village invested a lot of money in that area and for the trail. I bought that, the other business partners, I was always in manufacturing in my career. Barb Gerardin was one of the other owners. She can't be here. She's like Gary. She's sitting in Florida. And she's a police officer for Green Bay PD and retired. Her son Kyler was the other owner, and Kyler has some severe handicaps that came from an accident. We enjoyed owning that business for 14 years and invested into the property. Because of some medical issues and retirement, I no longer can do the kind of physical work that needs to be done at the marina. So the Kells family, buying the marina, we thought was a great fit. We're boaters our whole life, love the community here. Ashwaubenon has got beautiful parks, the trails, and I really feel this short-term rental, and like Don already mentioned, we have letters of collaboration from the other commercial businesses around and ideas that they have. And I'm sure that there's concerns, but it would be great tonight if we could understand what those concerns are, to make sure that the needs of the board are met and also the new business owners so that it can survive, right? You need a certain amount of revenue to be able to run a business. So that's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I did have one more thing. I'm so sorry. I was telling Don that we get a lot of calls from Chicago and other states because of the waterways here. And in De Pere, as soon as that ice goes out, everybody wants to be out there walleye fishing. And so the marina brings in a lot of people, and they'll say, hey, we're staying over at the Aloft, and do you know any restaurants? And is the ice off yet? You know, so they're traveling here with their families. So again, we believe that Riverway Marina has a really valuable place in the village and appreciate your consideration for this.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this?
Hello, Dennis Kettles, 771 Mancal Road, Brillion. I support the short-term rental for the marina and the community, and as mentioned, as does direct neighbors to the marina, which include Gabe from the OC, Mike Busick from Wealth Management and Terrace Wedding Venue, and Ted, who is working on a large development at this time. This adds up to millions of investment dollars in the direct area. If they thought the short term would negatively affect anything, we would not have their support. The entire area is commercial use, so this would be the perfect spot for short-term rental. This is a business with business neighbors' approvals, not someone trying to rent their home to make a buck at the neighbor's expense. We would like to have the clubhouse and marina enjoyed by not only private members, but also by community and tourists, as we already allow them to fish year-round and do other recreations in the marina. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Danielle Martinez, N 1242 County Road GG. I'd just like to touch on the people that we did talk to, our neighbors, and what they're kind of thinking that they would use this for. So we talked to Mike, who has the wedding venue, as well as the wealth management building. So for the wedding thing, he was thinking that he could use that for weddings for the brides to get ready, and then later that night for the bride and groom to stay there overnight so they're not traveling, obviously, with the alcohol. So he thought that would be a perfect location to use because it was close to him. And then Gabe at the OC, we talked to him, and we did rent him yesterday, actually, 3 of the boat slips that we have that we're putting in this spring. and he was real for it, just because it would add revenue for him, for his business. And then Ted, you know, developing that memory care facility, we just thought that it would be perfect for families coming into town that have parents, you know, at the memory care, for a place for them to meet and go through things and figure out what they're going to do with their parents. Just because, like, our family's experienced that a couple times where, so we know that, you know, it takes a lot of, you know, talking, discussing, and it's a lot to think about when you have your parents being put in a memory care facility. So it's just a nice place for them to sit and talk it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to say anything about this project? Okay, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second?
Motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 9B, public hearing regarding a conditional use permit application for a wireless telecommunications tower at 2634 Babcock Road, parcel VA-155-1. So this is taking care of the standpipe, correct? Okay, is there? Okay, the Babcock standpipe that they want to put up the cell tower. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against the Babcock cell tower? Anybody who would like to speak for or against the Babcock cell tower? Okay, I need a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close the hearing?
Second.
Motion and a second to close that public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, action items. Number 10A, consider, discuss, act on ordinance 01-2-25, amending a planned unit development, PUD, permitting transient residential use of the Riverway Marina Clubhouse at 457 Marina Lane, parcel VA 132-4-1. Okay, Aaron.
All right, thank you. I will just share my screen and bring up an image of the location for reference. There you go. As you can see, the clubhouses was proposed to be used as a short-term rental request by the owners of the Riverway Marina. The property is currently zoned P public use, and under our zoning code, residential uses are not permitted within uses typical of the district, which are usually schools, libraries, marina breakwaters, so on and so forth. Amending the PUD that overlays the southern riverfront would allow for the limited usage of the clubhouse as a short-term rental, while not allowing any other additional types of uses outside of the P public use zoning district, so it does restrict it just to that use. Again, provided that a short-term rental license is obtained from Brown County and the village if necessary. One item note is that should the short-term rental be approved, the applicant's owners will need to work with a design professional to ensure the applicable building codes are followed and necessary improvements are completed, again, should the PUD amendment be approved. As noted, we did receive letters of support for the PUD amendment from the OC, the Terrace at Marina Circle, and Greenwind Development, all of which you have in your packet or at the dais. For reference, Site Plan Review Committee did not provide a recommendation, and the Planning Commission recommended approval on a 5-2 vote. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them, although the applicants are in the audience as well.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I just have a question maybe for the applicants. Right now, the facility is open for someone to use the bathroom or get water or whatever in that building, is that correct? Is that still gonna be possible for so you'll be able to do that and you still will have the short-term rental in there? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody have any questions?
I've got a question.
Yes, Gary.
Is there ample parking for that facility when it's rented out to more than the capacity of the building if they would reach that?
Could I have you come to the mic, please? Otherwise, with the recording, they can't hear you.
Yes, there's ample parking for, I would say, 2 to 3 spots, 2 for sure, but you could get 3 cars in there on the pavement. So, yes, the driveway is in, so there is ample parking off the road to park in there, which is a good question, Gary, because I know like right now on that cul-de-sac, a lot of times people are actually parking like even in front of it. I was just there Sunday night and it's fine, it doesn't bother us, but we have parking off the road for the people using short-term rental. So, yeah,
The problem is in the wintertime, we do not have, we got a ordinance against parking on the road for snow bans. And if there's a number of cars, they cannot be on the street. So that's the reason for the question.
yeah, that's okay, Gary, no worries.
Okay. I have to say that, what, go ahead, are you done, Gary?
Seeing I got the mic, let me have it for another minute. If that was in my district, there'd be a definite no. We're getting saturated with short-term rentals, unbelievable. I look out my window from my home and I see for sale signs. The next thing I see is a dozen cars in the driveway because it's a rental. I gave this some consideration. You know, it's in a business area. We promote business in the area. We're good friends to these people. After giving it some consideration for its use, regardless of what people did say about it, I guess I'm going to have to think this out a little bit more to say that I think it might be a good program to go with. We are business minded in this area, and for that reason, I would consider this.
I would agree with Gary. It's in a business area. There's no residential around it, and it doesn't take a residential property away from a family if it is being used as a short-term rental. So in my opinion, I see no reason to not allow them to do it.
I agree. It is in my district, and I think it's a creative use because it sits vacant most of the time now. As far as I know, I walk that trail almost every day with my dogs, and there's hardly ever anybody in that building.
It's been vacant for, I have to refer to Lord. Sorry.
You are correct, since before the pandemic. Yeah.
So I think it's a creative use. I support it.
I was just out of the country, all around water, and every marina we pulled into, not a single one had an indoor clubhouse area, but every single one of them had a property, an area of a property used as a short-term rental above a store, above a restaurant or something. So I feel like it's in line with what people are wanting to use these properties for.
Go ahead, Chris.
I agree with everybody here. I think it offers some stability to that parcel. I know we got a reputation of not really liking short-term rentals in the residential areas, and deservedly so. There's good reasons, but this is a little bit different. My only question, I guess, I would have concern, and it probably shouldn't be one, but I just want to bring it up, is are we opening up a can of worms as far as the next business coming in, and next one, and the next one asking for the same thing?
Can always deny it. You know, every one that comes to us, we can think about and deny it if we don't want it. I think this is a good place for it.
Yeah.
So the only thing I'm going to say about it, and this is nothing personal by any means, I was president when that first short-term rental language went into Scott Walker's budget, and I wasn't very happy with it. I'm still not very happy with it because it's eaten up a lot of my community. I was just at a meeting in Madison, and they talked about land use. And one of the controls that you have as a government is your land use. And if you grant the short-term rental, it will never again be anything else. So for that reason, I'm going to vote no. It kind of sounds like I'm probably going to be the only person voting no, but it's just strictly because of the control. The state took the control away from me for the rest of our community. And I do have control of this, so I will be voting no.
I did not understand that, Mary, and until I had talked to Gary about that today, and I'm very sorry about that. I didn't realize that that's how that control went away from the villages.
Yep.
Had no idea. But in this particular case, I respect your decision, but in this particular case, this was never a residence. It'll never be a residence. It's just gonna be a vacant building. It's never gonna be anything. And I respect what you're saying, but if it was a residence, I didn't know that. I didn't know that the village lost all control of a house once it turned into a short-term rental. From what, if I'm understanding this correctly, you just lose it forever. It's just, that's what it is.
Well, nobody can afford to buy it to turn it back into a residence, you
Well,
know.
yeah, it's $1 million or whatever.
838,000 was one of the latest sales, yeah.
Yeah, and like
So-
I said, I respect that, but I had no idea. But in this particular case, like I said, it's, at least this wasn't a residence and never will be a residence. You know, our family has no intention to come back to the board and try to make one of us live there. You know, it's not, it's gonna be just a vacant building is all it's gonna be going forward. And it's not gonna be lost, at least it's not gonna be lost for the community. The only thing it would do is contribute to the community, because whoever comes in to rent, you know, at least it's gonna provide tourism, gas stations, grocery stores, restaurants, and so forth. And this, just so the board knows, this is not about the Packer draft. It doesn't matter. If you guys want to approve this after it, it doesn't matter, whatever. It's not about a quick fix for our family. It's about making a good use of that building so we can concentrate on making that marina the way as great as it once was. You know, we're putting in new docks this year, and we're gonna gradually replacing the old docks and just basically, you know, as Lori said, her and her sister are getting older. I got 4 kids in their late 30s, early 40s that are business-minded and very go-getter, and they will contribute to the community, and they will also make that marina look nice and keep it looking nice. So, but I respect your opinion.
Thank you. Okay,
I'll move to approve ordinance 01-2-25 permitting transient residential use of the Riverway Marina Clubhouse, conditioned on the owners working with a design professional to ensure the applicable building codes are followed and necessary improvements are completed.
I'll second.
okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 01-2-25. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Passes. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Okay, 10B, consider, discuss, act on a conditional use permit application for a wireless telecommunication tower at 2634 Babcock Road, parcel VA-155-1. Aaron,
All right, thank you. I'll share my screen again and bring up just a map, again, showing the location. There we go. As alluded to earlier, this is to replace the existing standpipe, which is a fancy term for a water tower. Just a technical term more than anything else. This was new to me as well. But the new monopole is meant to replace the standpipe, which is no longer structurally stable. We do have existing wireless antenna arrays on the standpipe, and we do have contracts with those cell providers. The monopole will allow for us to replace the existing arrays, as well as have one extra space for an additional co-location antenna array if someone came forward to request it. There was a neighborhood meeting held on December 10th, 2024. 2 residents attended. Primary concern was regarding an existing alarm that would sound when the backup generator fuel was low. So no real concerns at all about the replacement of the standpipe with the monopole. Both the site plan review committee did approve the site plan, and the plan commission recommended approval of the conditional use permit at their respective January meetings. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, any technical questions, I'm sure Brian could take those as well.
Move to approve the conditional use permit for the wireless telecommunication tower at 2634 Babcock Road, parcel VA-155-1.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the conditional use permit at 2634 Babcock Road. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10C, consider, discuss, act on the Highland Ridge Estates Second Edition of Final Subdivision Plat. Aaron?
Thank you. I'll share my screen again and bring up an image of the final subdivision plat. Okay, so this is the final phase of the Highland Ridge Estates subdivision. It is considered the second edition. There are 3 phases though, so this is the third and final phase. As you can see, it does extend some of the streets further to the south with extensions or basically dead-end cul-de-sacs for temporary cul-de-sacs for future extensions to the property to the west. In terms of the final plat, it is substantially similar to the approved preliminary plat. And as noted, if a final plat is substantially similar to a preliminary plat under state statute, it is basically entitled to approval. I did go through the conditions of approval from the preliminary plat, identified the status of all of those. They are all addressed. In terms of recommended final plat conditions, including approval by the village board of a development agreement for Highland Ridge Estates Second Edition, including but not limited to those items identified as conditioned in the preliminary plat approval, and then approval by the Brown County Planning Commission. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, the developer and surveyor are also in the audience. You have questions for them.
Any questions?
It's a good
I'll
project.
move to approve. I'll move to approve of this as if I get all my golf balls back they find.
I
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the second addition to the final subdivision plat for Highland Ridge Estates. Any comments, questions?
My only comment is it's a good project. I'm happy to see some R1 being developed in Ashwaubenon. Wish it was in our school district, but we'll take what we can get. Perfect.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. D, consider, discuss, act on Highland Ridge Estates Second Edition Phase 3 Development Agreement between the Village of Ashwaubenon and Highland Ridge Properties LLC. Aaron?
All right, thank you. This is standard operating procedure for any type of subdivision where we have public improvements such as streets, street lights, street trees, so on and so forth, where we enter into a formal development agreement that lays out roles, responsibilities for the developer and the village to ensure there are no loose ends as you go through the development process. This development agreement is very similar to the first 2 phases in terms of required improvements, as well as guarantees for the funding of any potential improvements. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Again, the developer and surveyor are also in the audience. If you have any questions for them.
Any questions, comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the Highland Ridge Estates Second Edition Phase 3 Development Agreement between the Village of Ashwaubenon and Highland Ridge Properties LLC.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the Highland Ridge Estates Second Edition Phase 3 Development Agreement with the Village and Highland Ridge Properties. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10E, consider, discuss, act on special event application for Epic Marathon and Running Festival road closures. Chris?
So a request has been made for approval of the Epic Marathon and Running Festival road closures on May 18th, 2025. Public Safety has approved the new route, is what I'm told.
Yeah, the route was, we worked through it with Ryan, and the changes were mainly based on some of the feedback from the last village board meeting in December, though.
So then they're not going down Cormier on the section that you guys were concerned about? Is that the changes it looked like?
Yeah, there were two concerns brought up at the last board meeting. One, the date, which I can let Ryan discuss more, but it sounds like on his end, that's a non-starter, has to be that date. The second issue was, yes, using Cormier Road east of Ridge Road, which they were able to avoid.
Thank you.
Yeah, they worked through it with public safety and another concern of ours was manpower.
Yeah.
You know, because we're coming off the draft and, you know, our guys are gonna be pretty overworked, I'm gonna say, because of that. So they worked through all that. So less impacts on the village than original.
I make a motion to approve the event application for the Epic Marathon and Running Festival road closures.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the special event application for Epic Marathon and Running Festival road closures. Any other discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Gary?
Standard question for every time we have a marathon through our village. Are the residents going to be able to get out when the marathon is run and somebody at these crossings to let the traffic through?
Yeah, Gary, we will be able to accommodate that. Early on in the race, it's difficult, but as the runners begin spacing out, we will certainly get as many cars through as we can safely.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to approve. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. 10F, consider, discuss, act on ordinance 01-03-25, amending Chapter 7, Article 7 of the Ashwaubenon Municipal Code, bicycles, motorbikes, and similar vehicles. Joel.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. This particular amendment to municipal code is by way of a request from dating back to September 2023. I think Chris Zerbal actually brought this item to the village board's attention, and then it was deferred to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee for deliberation. The committee has met over the course of several months, as indicated in the staff report. In devising a brief amendment, there was a number of considerations that needed to be made, and quite a bit of deliberation on those questions that were being brought forth from the committee. In your packet tonight is a draft ordinance. That draft ordinance did not receive full consensus from the committee. In fact, there was still quite a bit of debate at the committee level as to one particular element of that draft ordinance. With that being said, the committee did forward it on to the board for your final consideration. I'll touch on a couple of the items that are in the amended ordinance that create some understanding or expectations as it relates to primarily electric bicycles and then electric scooters. Within the amended ordinance in your packet, bicycles, electric scooters, electric personal assisted mobility devices, and electric scooters are defined by statute. So the amended code incorporates those defined parameters under statutes within our municipal code. Just in the past, we were trying to identify or define them on our own right. We found that just identifying them specifically within statute creates that consistency and makes it easier to enforce from a public safety standpoint. An electric personal assisted mobility device is something that you'd maybe see Gary Paul ride around on in town. That's those Segway scooters. So Gary, those you might want to watch out for. Electric scooters are not only defined, but then they are also permitted under the amended ordinance to be operated on village streets. However, electric scooters and electric personal assisted devices are not afforded the same rights and privileges as bicycles today by being permitted on sidewalks. So electric scooters and those two-wheel electric personal assisted devices, they would not be permitted on sidewalks under the amended code. Electric bicycles, again, defined by statute. Statute effectively, although they define an electric bicycle as something different than a bicycle, they are afforded under statutes the same rights and responsibilities as bicycles, and so they would be provided that same right and responsibility within municipal code. However, and this is where the kind of the lack of consensus came from committee, is that under the proposed code in your packet, we would be striking a paragraph that permits bicycles and electric bicycles from being able to be ridden on public sidewalks within the village. So again, the code in your packet today includes that paragraph as being stricken, which then defaults to statute. Statute by default, unless it is permitted by the local jurisdiction, prohibits bicycles from being ridden on sidewalks. If you allow the paragraph to remain in statute, it would essentially allow bicyclists and electric bicyclists to operate on sidewalks, provided that they provide an audible signal and then yield to pedestrians that are traveling in the same direction. So tonight before you again, that ordinance is written to strike that paragraph. If the board disagrees with that provision, then a simple motion to approve the ordinance amended to allow for bicyclists and electric bicycles to operate on the sidewalks as it currently stands today would be certainly appropriate at this time. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you have and hopefully provide some clarity to some of the questions that the committee could not come to a consensus on.
So my question, Joel, if we approve this ordinance with the stricken part, people can no longer ride bicycles on the sidewalk.
Lawfully correct.
Okay, but where do we put the people who have like 5-year-olds who want to ride on the sidewalk? We're going to tell them they have to go on the road?
So if that paragraph is stricken from the code, lawfully, they would be required to ride on the road.
Okay, well, that's a no-starter for me. That's our most vulnerable population, our little people.
Right.
And
100% agree.
and I can't do that. That they have to have somewhere to ride. They have to be on the sidewalk. You can't take a 5-year-old and put them on the street. So it's a no-starter for me.
To be clear, when I brought this up, sorry, go ahead, Gary.
Go on, Chris.
All right, to be clear, when I brought this up, probably was over a year ago, my concern really wasn't sidewalks or anything that I remember. My concern was the kids that are riding these motorized scooters up and down the streets and in the neighborhoods. And I'm sure if you had talked to public safety about it, they've seen the same thing. These kids are buzzing through 4-way stops and stop signs. It just, my concern is for their safety. I get it. I was that age, everybody wants to be cool. It almost seems like they treat these things different than they even do a bike that they're riding. I see kids that are more responsible, that's on bikes going to and from school, but once they get on these powered scooters, they're just flying through intersections, and it's just a matter of time something's gonna happen. And that was my main concern. Really wasn't the sidewalk thing, although that was a secondary issue, because you see those kids buzzing up and down there, and that is also a safety hazard. But I agree with Mary and Chris that we need to allow our parents that have young ones up and down sidewalks. I agree with that. But my main focus was these kids that are on the street, and it was explained to me there's not a lot we can do with that.
Yeah, and I know there's plenty of debate and deliberation on this topic, just to provide some clarification on that. So the electric scooters are permitted under statute, and we would not have the ability, short of disallowing electric scooters from operating on a local street, if the posted speed limit was below 35 miles per hour. So at the end of the day, electric scooters are permitted under statute, but they would still need to follow, they have all the same rights and responsibilities as a bicycle would on the road. So in your case, Chris, some of the concerns that you expressed about them stopping at intersections or yielding the right of way, things of that nature, they still have to follow those rules of the road. This certainly helps provide clarity to our public safety officers that, oh, this is an electric scooter, we're gonna follow state statutes under this section, and they can provide with their discretion warnings or citations based on how that user is operating that scooter on the road.
Okay. With that, I'm with Mary and Chris and whoever else, but I can't I can't support this if it's gonna kick our child, our parents with young kids out into the street. That's just not appropriate.
I look at it with people that are elderly too and maybe a little less sure on a bike. If you're not comfortable on a road, you should be able to go to the sidewalk, especially if you're in heavy traffic or it's busy time of the day. I don't think we should be stopping people from riding on sidewalks. In general, not even just kids. What if you're just unsure or you're just not comfortable?
I have just a procedural question. I guess I'm confused why we're debating this as a board when they didn't even reach consensus as a committee. Like, why was it drafted with a recommendation when they're not really recommending this?
Sure. So process-wise, this has been discussed and deliberated for several months at committee. At the December 2024 meeting, the committee made a motion to recommend or to request that staff draft an ordinance for their consideration to ultimately forward to the village board. At that time, we did not have a full committee, but the committee in December recommended that we disallow or stricken that paragraph within the code not allowing bicycles on sidewalks. It was advised at that time that staff would draft the ordinance based on that formal motion. So there was a motion and action at committee to do that. That ordinance, or the ordinance that you see before you today, was brought back to committee at their meeting in January, to which the full committee was then present, deliberated, and just kind of a sequence thing is we have an individual on the committee that resigned his position, and so we had an even number of members at the committee level, so 6 members. Ultimately, they could not come to a consensus, so it was a tied 3-3 vote. Ultimately, the motion failed. The committee agreed at that time that they weren't going to come to a consensus. Every vote that they presented to themselves would have likely resulted in a tie, and that they felt that it would be best equipped to provide that to the board. So ultimately, they're not providing a consensus on recommendation for that particular paragraph. I do get a sense, and Tracy being the chairperson on the committee, that outside of that paragraph and that issue about bicyclists on sidewalks, the committee is recommending the other changes to the ordinance. I did not get a sense that they had conflict on any of those other issues. It was primarily the issue as it relates to allowing bicyclists on sidewalks.
What if we approve the portion that's recommended, and now that there's a new member, we just appointed Sue Krieger to that committee today? We could send the rest of it back and have them decide it with, because you're gonna have 7 people now.
It's certainly a possibility. If that's the direction that the board would like to entertain, what I would suggest is just forwarding or tabling the item or deferring it or referring it back to committee under its complete code. I think it would be a little confusing to amend certain portions and then bring back that separate paragraph. There's no major impetus that we have to have this approved tonight. This is just them finalizing their work and unfortunately not being able to come to a majority consensus.
I'd just like to touch on a few things for some of the comments that were made as the chair of the Bike and Ped Committee. We did discuss it, like Joel said, for many meetings. What you need to understand is state statute does not allow bicyclists to be on the sidewalk. State statute is done that way because they've done research, they've done data. It's much safer for bicyclists not to be allowed to be on sidewalks. Also, all the surrounding communities that are adjacent to us do not allow bicyclists on the sidewalk. That was a survey that was done that Joel and staff did, and that was reported to the Bike Ped Committee as well. The other thing that you need to consider is the village of Ashwaubenon. We have very few sidewalks in our community. Mary's saying, well, a 5-year-old's not going out on the road. Almost every residential street in our community, a 5-year-old has to go out on the road to be able to ride their bike out of the end of their driveway. There are very few sidewalks, and the sidewalks that are out there are on collectors and arterials, which are like Oneida Street, Cormier. No 5-year-old should be out on Oneida Street or Cormier on their own riding a bike on the sidewalk or off the sidewalk. So this ordinance, I know what you're saying, and it's a personal truth that it's safer, you think it's safer to be on the sidewalk. It is not. It's safer for a bicyclist, especially an adult bicyclist, to be on the road and be in a position that can be seen. There's more bicyclists that get hit riding on sidewalks when they're going off the sidewalk into the street and going to the other sidewalk because they're just out of sight and out of mind. So please keep that in mind and, look into it a little further. This is the reality of it. I know gut feeling, you feel like, hey, that's the safest place to be. Reality is it is not.
Well, the data, Tracy, might show that it's not the safest place to be, but I think if you look at the data of where the people feel safe, I think it's 70-some% of the people feel safer on the sidewalk. So
I don't know where you heard that, Mary. Tell me where you found that one.
I will find it for you.
Okay, let me know.
Yeah, I'll find it.
Thank you.
Okay.
And maybe we should send it back. Got a new member. I get Kelly's comment. We got a new member on the committee. Send it back again. There's not a big hurry for it. It's kind of dead of winter. There's not as many bicyclists out there right now. And then you have the other concerns with others using the sidewalk, especially if those electric bikes are out on the sidewalk. Those things go fast, and you're creating conflicts on the sidewalk with pedestrians, walkers, runners, people with strollers, whatever the case may be on the sidewalk, when bicyclists are traveling on the sidewalk on a speed much faster than a pedestrian. So there's conflicts there as well.
If it were to get sent back, wouldn't it just come back to the village board anyways? Yeah,
That's correct.
I don't think we need to send it back. I think it can be ended here once and for all.
Okay.
I just want to add a comment. I agree with everything that's been said as far as safety for sidewalk transportation for bicycles with younger kids. I just do not see them on the road. As far as kids on the road, those streets without sidewalks are real slow and the traffic is not as heavy as on our major streets. The only thing I'll say about the bicycle lanes, if you're an experienced bicyclist, if you feel comfortable on the road, that's fine. But some of these younger people, there's no way do I want to see them on the streets. A question I have, if you're going to let some of these vehicles, electric vehicles and whatever, run on the streets as the law would permit, where do they run on the street? Do they stay on the bicycle lanes, or can they drive right down the middle of Cormier like I see somebody does all the time whenever I meet him? He's in the middle lane heading down Cormier. Now, is that the right way or the wrong way to run an electric bike at speeds that are posted?
I'll defer to our public safety professionals at the end of the table on how they.
There's only one
Tom,
left.
are you there? How you want to handle that from an enforcement standpoint?
Absolutely. So bicycle is actually considered like a vehicle. It's got to obey all the rules and regulations that a vehicle does. So Gary, if a vehicle or if an electric bike is riding down the road on a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit road and it's keeping up with the speed, it actually can do that. It's especially if it's ready to take like a left-hand turn. When it approaches an intersection, it has that lane if it's available for it. And when it comes to a stop sign, it needs to stop just like a vehicle does. So it does follow the rules and regulations of a vehicle that's also on the road. Now, if that bicycle is trying to travel down a 35 or a 45-mile-an-hour road, it's certainly going to probably use due caution to make its turn into, like, make a left-hand turn. It's certainly not just going to try to impede traffic. Hopefully they're going to be safe, but sometimes there's people out there that need a little bit more education, and sometimes people don't realize the traffic that is zooming by, but we certainly do our best to educate and enforce when necessary.
Tom, would you?
Tom, if that's the case, how come they don't pay license fee and whatever else that a vehicle does to support the roads?
That's a question for your legislatures. I'd like to see that, but We just have them licensed regular bicyclists here in the village.
Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion or?
I do, I just don't know how to word it so I get what I want.
So if I understand based on your commentary, the motion would be to adopt ordinance 010325 with the amended change to section 7-277, keeping paragraph 3.
I make a motion to do exactly what you just said.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so what that means then is that we will keep the bicycles on the sidewalks, but we will amend the wording for the electric scooter. Is that what?
Essentially, it keeps all of the amended changes as outlined and highlighted in the ordinance, minus paragraph 3 on what would be page 2 of 3 of that draft ordinance. Paragraph 3 at present is stricken, meaning it would be removed from the code. The amended ordinance as made by motion would keep paragraph 3 intact. So it would not be stricken from the code, thus allowing bicycles and by default electric bicycles from being allowed to be ridden on public sidewalks within the village, provided the operator of the bicycle upon the sidewalk shall yield the right-of-way to any pedestrian and shall exercise due care and give audible signal when passing a bicycle rider or pedestrian proceeding in the same direction.
Okay,
That paragraph would remain.
okay. Does everybody understand that motion and second? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Okay. Okay, 10G, consider, discuss, act on bid award for 2025 tree removal bids.
All right, this is a three-part agenda item here, so I'm going to just break it down. Bids were opened up a week ago on basically ash tree removals and some removals in Argonne Park. The low bidder was Lowney's Tree Service. The initial bids requested dollars for the conservancy area in around Otto Court. There's a lot of dead ash trees in there that need to be removed so we don't have blockage of that creek. The other part was for the trail. If you remember, the actual boardwalk part of the trail was approved prior to the holidays. This is the tree removal, which will allow the boardwalk to be put in. So Lowney's Tree Service was low bidder on both of those. If you remember, at the initial village board meeting prior to the holidays, when the boardwalk was approved, we talked about an additional part of the trail, to put that trail a little farther through into northward into Argonne. We said we didn't think we had enough money, but if we did have enough money, would the village board feel comfortable with it? And that was approved. Well, it turns out the bids were way better than we expected them to be for this winter. So we have the funding to do that alternate bid to remove the trees. So what we did then is we went to the top bidders and asked them for a price for the alternate part of the trail as well to remove the trees. So that trail can be put in at any point we want to. The boardwalk can be put in at any point we want to in the future. So we got the prices back. Low bidder on that alternate part of the trail was, again, Lowney's Tree Service out of Appleton. They were the low bidder on the other two portions as well. Lowney's had a low bid of $4,500 for that section of trail. The second low bid was Trios. Trios was also the second low bidder for everything else. Trios's low bid for that section of trail was $8,100. So staff recommendation, sorry, this is getting a little long, hopefully you can follow, is to approve Lowney's for all three portions of the trail for a total dollar amount of $18,200. Again, I'm adding in the additional trail portion in Argonne for $4,500. That's how we came up with the $18,200. questions.
My question that I have, Rex, is the bid is so much lower than all the other ones? They do meet all of the,
They, they do. We were concerned about that as well because they were so much lower. But they feel that they can get that job done for that amount of money. So not being able to, or not having a reason to disqualify them, the option that we have is to let them see, let's see what they can do. They're saying they can do it. They're a reputable, larger tree service company in the valley. They're not small by any means. So that's why the recommendation is to move forward with Lowney's.
maybe it's just good winter work.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. Okay,
I'll move to approve all 3 phases of the tree removal project to Lowney's Tree Service.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Lowney's Tree Service for all 3 phases of the tree removal. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, 10H, consider, discuss, act on bid award for mini park on Element Way. Rex.
So bids were also opened 2 weeks ago for the mini park on Element Way. This is basically for the concrete work, electrical, some minor plumbing, some sun shelter assembly, a lot of flat work, some drainage, leveling of the ground, so on and so forth. Low bid would be for $148,511.30. And the low bidder on that was Advanced Construction, which has certainly done much work with those types of trades. So recommendation is to approve Advanced Construction for the Element Way Park construction.
I'll make a motion to approve advanced construction for the Element Way Park.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve advanced construction for Element Way Park for $148,511.30. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
10I, consider, discuss, act on Public Works 2026/2027 Advanced Fleet Replacement Order. Brian Rickert.
All right, so in front of you tonight, you have some fleet items for 2026 and 2027 that have extended lead times. So generally, when we work through our budget process, you guys see the fleet for 2025. However, looking out into years 2026 and 2027, there are items that we would like to purchase or place orders for here in 2025. So 2 of those items in 2026 are tandem axle plow trucks, which are replacing an existing tandem axle plow truck and then also replacing a grader that we use for snow removal operations. In 2027, we also have in there a replacement of a side load garbage truck. Current lead time, we ordered a garbage truck back in 3rd quarter of 2022. We have yet to receive it. We're currently looking at about a 32-month lead time for that garbage truck. So one of the things that I want to be very conscientious of to make sure that we're able to still provide services to our village residents is to make sure that we have, functioning equipment that's able to do our daily activities. So with that, I'm looking for consideration from the village board to execute contracts with various vendors. Of course, we'll put specifications together, send them out to public bid, receive bids, open them, and award to the lowest responsible bidder for the purchase of 2 plow trucks and 1 garbage truck, which we would plan to take delivery of in 2026 and 2027. We'll be sure to write specifications that payments will occur in those years. So delivery and payment will occur in 2026 and 2027. So with that, I'll open it to any questions.
Are these specific bodies for the garbage truck that are, is there a specific one that you guys prefer, or have you looked at going to different vendors or manufacturers?
Yeah, that's actually something with this truck that we did switch. So you'll notice a lot of our garbage trucks driving through the village, they're actually on what's referred to as a cab over chassis. They have a flat front face. We are now opening the door, we did some trial periods actually before my time here at the village. We're switching to actually a commercial type chassis. So that'll open the door to additional vendors, to allow for an international or Freightliner type of configuration. So we generally don't specify the exact make or model of a chassis. We'll generally specify engine and transmission type, just to make sure that we're able to stay consistent with our software and our filters and fluids that we have here within our operation.
Same thing for the body then?
Body is the same thing too. We specify capacity. We specify, what cycle times and stuff need to be by the time it cycles, into the actual hopper, runs its compaction cycle and stuff like that. You'll notice we have multiple different vendors. We have a New Way, we have a Heil. We used to run some Bridgeport trucks, so we don't specify a specific vendor when it comes to that.
Okay.
So.
Brian, I have a question on the grader being replaced with a dump truck. Is this the same one that we talked about a while back? Or is this a different grader now?
It's a different grader. So the village used to own 2 graders. This last year here in 2024, we replaced one of our graders with a loader. The loader allows for, multiple operations. We don't have any gravel streets here in the village that really allows us to use a grader for much. When you switch to a loader, we use it for, yard waste, we use it for rubbish collection, multiple different operations here in the village. So there's 2 graders. One of the graders got replaced with a loader. Another grader is now going to get replaced with a tandem axle plow truck. The benefit to a tandem axle plow truck, of course, they don't have the ability to do the cutting, if you get that hard ice back, but they have the ability to salt. A grader, anytime you go and plow, you have to follow behind it with a salt truck.
So we won't have any graders anymore?
We will not.
And you have no concern about having no graders because we just have not used them in the capacity to build roads and maybe grade parks or whatever in the past?
Correct. Yeah, in the past, we used to actually use village staff here to build roads. We don't do that anymore. One of the considerations that we had is, what do we do if we get a hard snowpack or ice pack on our roads? We'll go out with our loaders, put the buckets on them, and cut with the buckets rather than cut with the plow and wing, because plow and wings have trip edges and you wouldn't be able to cut any sort of harder snowpack or ice. The one thing that you can do too is if we do notice that we're having an issue with not being able to cut any sort of hard snowpack, you can get a belly scraping plow under an actual plow truck. You do see those on some county highway trucks. Yep. We don't have those, but you can get them. They're a little bit harder on infrastructure if you have manholes, valve boxes, anything like that sticking up. One thing has to give, and it's just whatever strongest.
Okay. So
we have the same thing with the graders now.
Yeah, so not having a grader you don't think is a big concern? Will
No.
be fine and you can still get the work done you need to with what you're changing things to?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Do we, if we order these now, Brian, do we get these at the same price even though we don't get them for 2 years?
I would like to say that, yes. Unfortunately, much like vehicles, model years sometimes come with increases. So, we don't generally get into details of what interiors look like and stuff like that. But some of these chassis, they'll come out with a new fancy radio. We don't specify any radios, but unfortunately sometimes they'll take whatever was a base model and all of a sudden now it has Bluetooth. So now they charge a little bit more for a model year upcharge. That's something that's been going on in the industry since 2020. The highest model year upcharge that I've ever seen is around $6,000. But ultimately, when we had our previous attorney here, we were wondering if we could put any language in there to, ultimately hold them true to their contract, but ultimately allows them to have a way to back out of their contract too. So it's kind of a mutual agreement between both parties. So they would gladly just say, that truck is no longer yours, you're not getting it, we'll sell it to the next person in line, because there's such a wait list for commercial trucks.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, I need a motion to approve or disapprove.
I'll make a motion to approve to execute contracts with various vendors for the 2026, 2027 fleet equipment replacements in the amount of $1,042,000.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the advanced fleet replacement order for $1,042,000. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. 10J, consider, discuss, act on an intergovernmental agreement with Brown County to participate in Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. Brian Rickert.
All right, so in front of you today, back in 2023, Brown County Highway Department was awarded a federal grant for the Safe Streets and Roads for All. That program ultimately was an 80-20 split, 80% of it being federal funds, 20% of it being local funds. So with that, they go through and they look to see if there's any low-hanging fruit within our roadway network system. Do we have, signs that maybe are missing? Do we have pedestrian crossings, pavement markings, things like that that need attention to try to make our roadway system a lot safer? From there, they generate a report and make recommendations as to what we can do to try to make our road system safer. It also allows for us to apply for grants such as HISIP, which is Highway Safety Improvement grants, if there are troublesome or problematic areas within the village, to allow for additional grant funding. So it essentially spells out a plan, and then you can then use that plan to apply for additional grants when the time comes. With that in front of you, they took all the roads within the local municipalities, with the exception of the city of Green Bay, because they received their own grant, and they split up that $50,000. They took all the roads by lane miles and split them up, and based on the amount of lane miles that we have here in the village, that dollar amount for us comes to $3,500 approximately, to have a consultant engineering firm come in and take a look at our road system to make recommendations for safety improvements.
So Brian, they're just gonna look at our local roads, not any of the county ones, is that correct?
That is correct.
So, being at this meeting that I was in Madison, I talked to Joel about this. There was some discussion down there that grants may be halted, all federal grants. So I'm assuming that they won't start this if they don't have the money.
That's something I can double check with the highway commissioner about. I would hope that since it was committed to in 2023, the money's been set aside, but that's something that I can verify with Chris.
Okay.
Yeah, essentially, if you're approving this tonight, you're approving the intergovernmental agreement with the county, but then the county won't continue the project unless the grant funding is available, and that this being kind of a hot press item that just became an issue within the last 24 to 48
Yeah.
hours, we'll verify before we commence the project.
Okay.
This was brought in front of the Public Works and Protection meeting, and we approved that. So I'll make a motion to approve the grant funding, if we can get it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the intergovernmental agreement with Brown County to participate in Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, number 11, items for next agenda. If anybody has anything, give the office a call. Closed session items. During the meeting, the village board of the Village of Ashwaubenon may convene into closed session pursuant to item 12A as listed. I need a motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session?
Second.
Motion and a second to go into closed session. Roll call, please.
President Kardowski,
Yes.
Trustee Atkinson, Trustee Zerbal, Trustee Service,
Yes.
Trustee Flukie.
Yes.